Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm just so happy to have you all join us for this third program on the book launch of Ordinary, Extraordinary African American Women. My name is Joy Pettit, and I'm going to begin the program with several housekeeping items. And the first is that we are recording this event, so we just wanted everyone to know that. Also, please put your questions in the chat area because we will get through all the questions that are asked. During the course of the program, your mics are going to be muted, and we're going to let the conversations with Tara and Yvette go forward before we move into questions. So if you have one as you're listening, just put it in the chat and we'll make sure that we get to it. I want to ask you to please check out Jewel Jordan Publishing, the website, because today, which is the last day of Black History Month, if you purchase the book, Ordinary, Extraordinary African American Women, you will also receive a copy of Color Him Father for free. This book was one of the first books my sister wrote, and it is about African American fathers. It's a wonderful, beautiful book that tells wonderful stories about Black fathers. So this you will receive free if you order today, because this was a Black History Month special. But check out the website as well, because you can see all the activities that are going on with Jewel Jordan Publishing. Also, during the course of this program today, we're going to ask Black History Month questions. And so the first person who answers the questions in the chat will receive a book for free. So we certainly look forward to you all answering the Black History Month questions. And like I said, the chat room is very good about the first person who answers will see it, you'll see it, and that will be the receiver of the book. So first, before I ask you the first Black History Month question, I do want to introduce my sister. That is Stephana Colbert. Stephana is a graduate of Brown University and the University of California at Berkeley Law School, Boat Hall. She began her legal career as a public defender in Denver, Colorado, and then moved on to working for corporations and universities in international intellectual property. She has always been a writer. She's been someone who, from the time she was, in middle school, she wrote, and she continues to write to this day. But one of the things that we were so thrilled about is when she went on to pursue this as her primary passion. She started Jewel Jordan Publishing. She's published several books, and several are in the works. And again, this is her passion. So it thrills me to introduce her and to have you all have this conversation with the two guests from the book today. So with that, I will ask you the first Black History Month question, and again, answer it in the chat. Who was the first African American woman to reach the rank of #1 in women's tennis in the Open era? So the first African American woman to reach the rank of #1 in women's tennis in the Open era. And with that, we'll watch the chat, but I'll turn it over to my sister, Stephana Colbert.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm excited. I hope you all are. I'm excited as I am every week to celebrate the ladies in the book, and generally just to simply celebrate African American women, which is the reason that I wrote this book. And when I say I wrote the book, most of the book is in the words of the ladies who we celebrate. Just briefly, I wrote the book to celebrate African American women. I wrote the book to give us a better sense of who we are as people, to give us visibility, to tell our stories. I think that we have African American women who have some spotlight these days. Certainly the former First Lady, Michelle Obama. Oprah Winfrey has had spotlight on her forever. We have Stacey Abrams, we have Viola Davis, and of course the current Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris. But what I wanted to do is celebrate African American women whose names you might not hear every day. grandmothers taking care of grandchildren, community activists, artists, survivors who did more than survive, teachers, mothers of special needs children, sociologists, corporate executives, women of the cloth, entrepreneurs. And our celebrants today, a corporate executive, Tara Bradley, and a grandmother and person for whom family is so important, Yvette Stevenson. And so I welcome them today as I welcome you all. As I said, the stories are told primarily in their voice. And one of the things I want to be clear about is that we're not I've talked about stereotypes before in these, but it's not so much who we are not, it's about who we are. And that, I think, you know, the glass is half full and not half. So I really want to celebrate us for who we are. Let me acknowledge before I start the other women who are in the book. I see Andrea Charlton, Dr. Stephanie Brooks, Mrs. Beverly Pegues Tucker, I think Tina Price. I see Miss Tina Price. And if I missed somebody, Joy, let me know.
You got them now.
Okay. But thank you all. I acknowledge them because they're in the book, and we're going to continue to have these conversations. But I just appreciate them so much. So with that,
Stephana, very quickly, Ginger.
Oh, and Ginger Campbell. And, you know, Ginger wears lots of hats for us, and hers was the first launch. She agreed to be our guinea pig, and I thought it went very well. Last week, we had Dr. Stephanie Brooks. Hers went very well as well. The only problem was we had some technical difficulties. I kept getting kicked off. But because of the wonderful people who are assisting me in this process, nobody missed a beat. Y'all didn't miss me. Apparently there was no dead air. Everybody was going forward. And so I pray to God that we don't have technical difficulties today, but please know we will move forward. Because that's what Black women do, right? We move forward. That's a nice little segue. So let me first introduce to you, this is the way this is going to go because we have two people today. We have Tara Bradley and we have Yvette Stevenson. And so I'm going to introduce you to both of them, and then I'm going to read an excerpt from their stories. I'm going to introduce you to both of them, and then I'm going to focus on one of them, introduce excerpts, go to the second one, introduce excerpts, and then I will follow up with a couple of questions. And at the end, there will be an opportunity for the audience to ask questions. And please, as Joy said, please ask questions. You can put them in the chat, but when we begin the audience questions, to the extent that you can raise your hand, I want this to be as interactive as possible, so please do so. All right, and without further ado, let me first introduce Tara Patman. I'm sorry, Tara Patman Bradley. Tara Patman was her maiden name. Tara Bradley. I knew her as Tara Patman, so that's probably why I said that. She has spent her career as a corporate executive with ONG, Oklahoma Natural Gas Company. She's been very enmeshed in volunteer services. She is a daughter, a sister, a mother to twin girls who are, twin women, because they're now grown women, Jennifer and Jillian. She's a grandmother. She has 2 grandchildren now, and I understand she can play a mean game of bid whist. We also, our second celebrant is Yvette Stevenson. She has been throughout her life the person who is really focused on her family. She's been a caregiver both to her children, her grandchildren, her mother. She's a postal service employee, a mom, a grandmother, and a woman who very much embraces family. So with that, I am going to I'll go first to Tara. So my first question to you, Tara, and I will ask this of you, Yvette, as well, so you can be prepared. Why did you agree to share your story with us?
Well, good afternoon. And I really had to think long and hard about that question. And so first, let me say, for those of you who know Stephana, you know that it's almost impossible not to admire, not to like, and to respect her. So it was truly an honor, Stephana, really, it was an honor when you invited me to be included in the book, especially a book about African American women. And what really made it special is that it was being authored by African American females. So I felt like you could relate to the trials and tribulations, the triumphs, the ups and downs that we as African American women face throughout our journey. So as I thought about that, I said, well, should I or should I not? Because I personally knew that I would be entering a very uncomfortable space, out of my comfort zone. But then I also thought, oh, what a legacy that would be for my grandchildren to have something written in a book. And it's funny that my granddaughter, who's 7, is going through some of the same things that I wrote about, that I talked about in the book. So with that being said, basically, because of the admiration and respect that I have for you, I felt in my heart that I should say yes, because I trusted you with my story. And so I'm so glad that I embarked on this journey with Stephanie. And as we were discussing my story, I felt like I was going through a therapy session. I think that was the attorney coming out in Stephana. But what I realized when I read my story, I realized how my life was impacted and influenced by my mother. And so I really began to embrace the story. And with that being said, at this point, I'd really like to dedicate this story to an amazing woman, a woman who was my soror of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, my link sister, my mentor. She was my best friend, my mother, Marion Guest Patman. And she was affectionately known as Meemaw by her granddaughters, Jennifer and Jillian. And so that's why I'm so glad that I embarked on this experience. And that's why I'm so glad I decided to be included in the book.
Okay. You know, now, because of what you said, you kind of threw me off. I'm going to go ahead and read the excerpt that I chose. There is part of the book does talk about her parents, her mom, her dad, her siblings. But I am going to read a couple of passages about Tara that focus on 2 things. One is her career at ONG, and the other really had to do with her volunteer work. So let me start there first. ONG. Tara spent her career at ONG and its subsidiary companies. There were successes and challenges, setbacks and satisfactions. She experienced growth and renewal, lessons learned, and opportunities to impact her job and her community in positive ways. Her words: I worked for ONG, One Oak, and One Gas for 37 years, which was the majority of my life. I started when I was 25 years old and retired at the age of 61. I had some exceptionally good years throughout my career, and some were a bit more challenging. Often I felt that I wasn't appreciated. I applied for several jobs I felt would have been a good fit, but unfortunately I was not the successful candidate. I wonder if it was because I never had a so-called sponsor or mentor, or perhaps because on 2 major occasions during my career at ONG, I had to fight for what I believed was right. I started my career as a home economist and later took on the roles of dealer representative, builder representative, and the Speakers Bureau representative. I ended my career as a community investment consultant. Although my career encompassed ups and downs, I learned how to choose the battles that I thought were important to fight, and to fight the right way in order to win. I also developed good friendships that I will cherish forever. We were a family. These are people that I have lunch with on a monthly basis, even today. And I chose this passage, and it's not the one Tara wanted me to read. I'm going to read the one she wanted me to read. But I chose this passage in part because, in my opinion, it reflects what many of us experience in the workplace. It doesn't matter whether it's a corporate workplace, a business, education. It doesn't matter. We all experience, as Tara said, ups and downs. And I think one of the things she said that's so important is, she learned which battles to fight. And sometimes that's a real important thing, because we can't fight everything. We face a lot, but we can't fight everything. And again, she says, I had learned how to choose the battles that I thought were important to fight, and to fight the right way in order to win. And that's the thing, we all have to understand there are consequences to the fights that we wage, but sometimes we have no choice. It's just important that you know which ones are the right ones to fight. And I will ask you, Tara, at this point, to reflect beyond what I just read about your career and kind of your experience, and what the biggest challenge was, if you choose to tell me that, or tell us that, or just whatever it is about your career that has struck you, even in reflection. You haven't been retired that long. She's just a little past 61. I just want y'all to know that, just a little. And so what would you say, Tara?
As far as the biggest challenge that I faced, was the biggest challenge.
Sure.
I think the biggest challenge was having the wherewithal to actually continue my career at Oklahoma Natural Gas when I truly felt that I wasn't being appreciated, because it was a very good company to work for. And the majority of my career doing Oklahoma Natural Gas, I really enjoyed what I was doing. And I will say that when I had challenges at my company, because of my volunteer efforts and the women that I met outside of my organization, those women were my mentors and my advisors that helped me to get through my career at Oklahoma Natural Gas. But one thing that troubled me while I was there, and I don't know if this happens everywhere, and I know this is being taped, but what I noticed is when the African-American males were moving up, they didn't lift us up as they were climbing. We really didn't see that happening until the Black female began to receive those positions, those upper level positions. And they made it a point of lifting up as they climbed. And although I never really had a position that said manager, I always felt good, because a lot of the younger women who were coming into our company would call and ask me for advice about how to do the right thing at the company. And I appreciated that, because when I started at Oklahoma Natural Gas, I was the second Black home economist that they hired. There was one in Tulsa, Mary. She was the first and I was the second, and we were the only two there throughout the entire time at ONG. But I had older women there, and I called this lady my shero, Irene, who helped me to stay there for 36 years. She would give me advice. She made sure that I succeeded. So she was like my mentor. And I tried to do that also. But one of the challenges that I had, and Dr. Brooks talked about this last week, I never had a sponsor. I had mentors, great mentors, but I didn't have a sponsor until late in my career. And by that time, I just wanted to do things that I truly enjoyed, and that was working for the foundation. I needed some sponsors earlier, sponsors who were sitting at the table who could have lifted me up.
And I'm glad you mentioned, because that was part of the conversation last week with Dr. Brooks, the whole importance of mentorship. And one of the young women who had worked with Dr. Brooks talked very, I think, passionately about the effects of and benefits of having a mentor, having a sponsor, and that kind of thing. Okay, now the second piece for Tara that I think is important is her volunteerism and the things that she's done as a volunteer. And she mentioned when she first started her mother and the importance that her mother, the important role her mother played in her life. And in fact, I think her mother, in many ways, as she tells me in the story, started her on her path with respect to volunteerism. My mother became a member of Jack and Jill when I was 13. As a teen growing up in Jack and Jill, I enjoyed it. Returning home from college, Tara's mother helped her turn her teen experiences with Jack and Jill and other organizations into a lifelong passion, Tara's words. When I returned home from college, I complained that I didn't have any friends and didn't know anyone. My best friend didn't return to Oklahoma after we graduated from high school, and the friends that remained in Oklahoma City had developed lives of their own. My mother suggested that I could keep from being bored by getting involved in the community. That was the best advice that she could have given me. Once I got involved, I was not bored. I made friends, and my job eventually was all about giving back. I love channeling my talents, time, and treasures through the organizations that I belong to in order to help the communities where I lived and grew up. I gained tremendously from being an active participant in my organizations. My first volunteer adventure was as a co-Brownie troop leader at St. John Baptist Church. Felicia McElroy was the co-leader, and we have remained friends for more than 40 years. I met the most influential people in my life through the organizations that I belong to and the places where I volunteer. I met Larry at Capital Chamber of Commerce and Urban League, and later I met Greg through the Chamber of Commerce. Greg is Tara's boo. Ultimately, I became president of the local Oklahoma City Jack and Jill chapter and then a regional director. When I completed my term as regional director and gave my going out speech, the members gave me a standing ovation. The speech was more about what the members had done in our region for Jack and Jill children, all the children that we reached through our program efforts. As a leader, I believe it is so important to recognize the people that make a program and activity, a chapter successful. The members from Central Region named a leadership award after me, the Tara Bradley Leadership Award, which is bestowed biannually to a member in our region, which exemplifies extraordinary leadership in our communities. I was truly honored to have been recognized by the members of Jack and Jill in Central Region. I follow the same path of participation and leadership within the Links Incorporated and other organizations, including my church, where I was a member, committee chair, or officer. This gives you something of a glimpse of Tara and the activities, the volunteer activities in which she has been involved. And Tara, I'll just ask this one follow-up question, which is, and Tara told me she didn't really want to answer any questions, and so of course I'm not paying attention to that. You know, in terms of your volunteer activities, what are the impressions, I guess, that you've been left with as a volunteer, and what can you share? Maybe that's a better way of putting it. What can you share about the benefits of volunteerism to our community?
Okay. The one thing I can say about volunteerism is that it allows individuals to go after their passions. And that maybe is not something that you can actually do in the workplace, wherever you may fall. But when you go and you volunteer, you can do whatever you want to do, whatever you're passionate about doing. And people love, and when you do that, you're truly making a difference. And you know, in my book, I talk about my mother encouraging me to volunteer. When I was a Brownie leader, I didn't have any children. So it was exciting to be around the little girls, and being a Brownie leader led to being the cookie chair for a unit. And I had like 1,000 boxes of cookies in my garage. So it's just so fulfilling. And when you are able to give back, and then to also, while you're giving back, creating a fulfilling life for yourself, that's a win-win situation. And if you can, and the reason why I started volunteering is because I didn't have anyone that I was closely connected to, a good friend. But once I became a volunteer and once I became an active member of organizations, not just a dues paying member, but of active member, that's when I started developing lifelong friendships within my world. And it's been beautiful. And the friends that I've met have been amazing, almost like the family members that I have. And you're also with a group of people, like-minded people like you. And when I was doing most of my volunteer years, I tried to do volunteer activities that centered around children so that I could include my daughters in the activities where I was volunteering. So it also became a family event. And I've always loved going to meetings when my girlfriends were playing dolls. I was playing go to meetings because I used to see my mother and her friends going to sorority meetings, and they would dress up and they were so excited. And when my mother would come, I said, well, where were you? Oh, we went to a meeting. So as I was growing up, I played go to meetings. And that's what I love doing. It's changing a little bit now as I get older, but I've always enjoyed that. I've always enjoyed the organization aspect, how it works and how you encourage people to accept your vision. And I just get excited about that. Okay. I can't hear.
I was muted. Thank you, Joy. I think that, you know, in mentioning your mother, I think we can all relate to our mothers, aunts, sisters, women in our family who kind of had that volunteer spirit and related to us. Now I'm going to turn to our second celebrant, Yvette Stevenson. Unmute yourself, Yvette. Very good. I gave a brief intro. I think that the first thing I want to ask you, Yvette, well, let me say this first. Now, I want to tell you all how I met Yvette. I think that's an important part to this story. The first part about it, I guess, is Yvette, as I indicated, was a window clerk at the U.S. Postal Service. That's near and dear to my heart because my father was the first Black window clerk in Oklahoma City. And so, you know, I would go to our post office and I'd see Yvette, and I knew I was in the throes of doing this book. And I was seeing it was something about how Yvette presented. I don't know if it was her interaction with her customers, her smiling face, her dedication to her job. I don't know what it was, but something touched me about Yvette. And so one day I approached her when nobody else was there, so I didn't keep anybody waiting. And I said, Yvette, and I told her what I was doing. And I said, you know, would you be willing to be in the book? And she said, as most Black women do when I ask them, I'll think about it. And I said, okay, let me give you a call and, you know, give me your number and let me give you a call. I might have even been less intrusive and said, here's my number. I don't remember. But I said, and so eventually Yvette agreed. And, you know, just a little bit of conversation I had in that beginning at the post office let me know that she was absolutely some person who should be included in the book. Part of that, you know, Black women raise their children, but they also raise their grandchildren. And Yvette has been one of those people who took on the responsibility of raising her grandchildren. And sometimes I think that's such an important role that African-American women play, but we don't get recognized for that. We don't, you know, it's kind of like, okay, this is another of those things that y'all just do. But I think it's important to recognize that. I think it was important to recognize. And so when Yvette told me about that and, you know, her experience raising her kids, I said, this is perfect. And after our conversation, I continue to think it's perfect. I can think it's perfect today. And so Yvette, I very much welcome you here to our conversation. You've had a head start in being able to answer the question, why did you agree to share your story?
because you are a person that you really can't say no to. I mean, you approached me and I did say I would think about it. And you asked me a couple of times after the fact. And I said, okay, there are a lot of strong Black women out there that do raise grandchildren and who do not get recognized for it with no help from anyone but themselves. And being in your book just lets them know that they're not alone. You know, it can be done. Just with a little help from your family support, it can happen. And there's no need to feel bad about it. You know, that's just life.
Not only no reason to feel bad about it, but again, from my perspective, it's to be celebrated that you would take on that responsibility after raising your own kids. I mean, I think, you know, raising one's children is its own job. But I think, you know, when you, and based upon kind of our conversation, you just did so willingly. It wasn't like, let me think about it. You said, this needs to be done, so let me go ahead and do it. And I think that's why I said it's not a matter of apologizing. It's a matter, from my perspective, of really celebrating you and the women like you who choose to, you know, make that sacrifice. And I know it's a sacrifice, and raise grandkids.
Stephanie, it is a sacrifice. And it's not that I'm sorry about it. It's that I just feel like if I have the means to take on my kids, I'm going to take them on. If I don't have the means, I'm going to still take them on. There's no point of putting my kids in a system to be raised by someone else when they can be living here and we may all have to bunker up, sleep together. You know, I was raised in a big family and we slept on many of floors and beds together and took on a lot of own support for ourselves. We had families living together. And I just felt like, why am I going to put my kids in the system for someone else to raise when they can come home with me and I can take care of them? I'm not asking for anybody to help. I'm just saying I'm going to keep them myself. I don't want anybody else to raise my kids by a system. I don't want them to go in and out of houses, in and out of foster homes. Right now, I have 11 grandkids.
Wow.
And I've raised 4 of them, if you want to say. I got 2 in Texas Southern College right now.
Wait. I'm going to read that. Don't tell them all of that. I'm going to read that part.
Okay.
Okay.
But, you know, those are my children and I don't want to leave them left alone. I wanted them to know, hey, we got you. We're our family. Family is all we have. You have nothing else out there. You have no income, but you have a place to stay, a place to sleep because you're a family. And as long as you got family, you got a place and a door to knock on.
That is an excellent transition into what I'm going to read from your story. The title of her story is Taking Care of My Family. And one of the constant things that I heard Yvette say to me in terms of what she relayed to her children and her grandchildren is, in her words, all you have is your family. This heartfelt belief has guided and sustained Yvette during good times and bad. The good times were summers with her 5 siblings and family reunions in Clearview, Oklahoma, where her grandmother, 104-year-old Marguerite Rich, and grandma still. Go ahead.
Stephanie, can I intercept that for 1 second? Just
Sure.
It's Marguerite French.
Mistake.
That's okay. We got it. But yeah, I just want everybody to know it is Marguerite French.
Marguerite French, who has been called, she's still with us, as I recall. Is that correct?
Still with us. She's still with us.
Aunt Mac, the family matriarch, lived and still does. The reunions, or golden treasures, as Yvette and her extended family called them, were joyous occasions, but also kept the Rich family together and committed to each other through hard times, celebrations, feuds, births, and deaths. And although Aunt Mac suggested she was embarking on her last reunion in 2016, when she was 100, her 22 children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, nieces, and nephews know that she will continue to enjoy their reunions as long as she is able. Thus, the family togetherness emanating from these reunions and her own love of family likely made Yvette's role as caregiver both natural and inevitable. This role started when she was young. Now I'm going to move to the role of grandmothers. The role of grandmothers has changed, expanded, reminiscent of the days of the extended family. Today, whether because our parents are busy working or not available, grandparents have become surrogate parents in many households. It is not unusual to find grandparents, especially grandmothers, raising their grandchildren, having sole responsibility for their care and comfort. They have raised their children and now at an age when they might expect their focus to be on retirement, rest, and relaxation with only responsibility for themselves, they're raising their grandchildren. If nobody else can or will take care of their grandchildren, they will. Such has been part of Yvette's journey. She has raised 4 of her 5 grandchildren, all girls, somehow finding time to also look out for her 5th grandchild, her first grandson. Okay. Forgive me. Perhaps because she abandoned her college career, Yvette has encouraged her children and grandchildren to get a college education. She is proud that her daughter Ashley succeeded in graduating from college. Additionally, in 2018, granddaughter Kylena graduated from high school and enrolled in college at Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas. Yvette's words, "My granddaughter is doing great at Texas Southern. She came home for Christmas break during her freshman year for 2 weeks and worked the whole time she was here. But she was ready to go back to school. She said, 'It's time for me to go back, Grandma.' She booked her flight home and back. I gave her the credit card. She said she had to be there so she could get started for next semester. The school opened and she was there." Yvette is delighted that her youngest granddaughter, Kaya, is now also a college student at Drury University in Springfield, Missouri. As her granddaughters navigate college, classes, and campus life, Yvette is always there to listen, advise, encourage, and even scold when necessary, to be there for family. And while her children and grandchildren may not always follow her advice, they have each moved forward with their lives in large part because of Yvette's determination and perseverance despite the difficulty, despite the obstacles. And finally, there's just one other thing I want to read, and it's from Yvette in terms of advice about obstacles. For anyone facing obstacles, Yvette has some tried and true advice, her words. "When you meet obstacles, you must just have to stand strong. You just have to stand strong. You have to meet them head on, figuring it out, looking at what you're going into, and thinking about what your options can be. If you go this way, what would the outcome be? If you do it the other way, what would the outcome be? Most importantly, don't just sit there and focus on 'I can't do.' Get 'I can't' out of your mouth." So Yvette, the one question I will ask you before Joy comes up with the next Black History Month question is, as a grandmother of your grandchildren, just what was your greatest obstacle and maybe your greatest delight?
My greatest obstacles was picking up my grandchildren from the foster care, taking them home with my daughter in college at the same time, her freshman year, and my mom got sick and I had to move her in my home. So trying to navigate 4 children under the age of 7, they were 7 and less, a sick mother, a full-time job that demanded 10 to 12 hours, 5 to 6 days a week, and a daughter trying to go to school. That was
I'm gonna give you applause just for all of that. Really, all of that,
yes,
all of that.
my mom had a port on her chest, so I had to make sure she had to have that done, food, and kids catch the bus. That was a lot. My best thing is my daughter's out of school. She's now taking in her own foster children. She has her own, she's doing her own thing. I have 3 children in school. My youngest one, the one in Drury, she has no student loan debt. She raised, her freshman year, she raised $13,000 to go to school by herself. And she came to me and she said, "Grandma, I'm short $1,200 to pay for my whole freshman year. Can you help me? And without a doubt, I said, no problem. It's yours. So she's finished her freshman year, and she just sent me an email saying she's going to be in her first production. She's taking drama and writing. She's doing, writing and drama. And she's going to be in her first production March the 13th.
I guess all of that says it all. That says it all. That's a testament to you and what you've done.
And I'm happy. And the rest of my children, they're on their way. They're not in trouble. They're doing their thing. They go to work every day and maintaining their family. I got one that has a daughter of her own, which is my great granddaughter. She's very smart, and she's taking very good care of her. So I'm really proud of all my children, pretty much so. I can pat myself.
Please do. Please do, and we pat you. All right, Joy.
So the first winner was Audrey Smith. She correctly answered the first question. It was Althea Gibson. So Audrey will be receiving the first book. And so the next question is kind of in keeping a little bit with Yvette's story. It is American jazz singer. Who is the American jazz singer who helped Black artists and disadvantaged children while winning 13 Grammys and being honored as the First Lady of Song? Famous for the art of scat singing and her rendition of the nursery rhyme, A Tisket, a Tasket. Please answer in the chat.
I don't know how to do the chat.
Okay, we have a winner, and that winner is Michelle Gaither. It was Ella Fitzgerald. And several
and let me also, Michelle joined us after I acknowledged the other ladies in the book. Michelle is one of the ladies in the book, and she, in fact, she and Tina, who are both on today, will be featured in the conversation next week on March 7th. It will be at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay, so now we've heard both of the stories of these ladies, and I would love it if we could now engage in, get questions from the audience so that we can engage in some additional conversation. I see it appears there are lots of questions in the chat, but certainly feel free to raise your hand and ask whatever questions you might have of either Tara or Yvette.
So one question to both ladies, both of you all can think about this, is as you've shared your story and been a part of this novel, what is the thing that you would like to, what is the most important thing that you would like to have your telling your story provide to other Black women?
Okay, don't everybody answer at once. Come on, Tara. Yvette.
I'm trying to.
You're muted, Tara. You're muted.
I think after reading my story and embracing my story, that family and friends are probably the biggest asset that we have. And we need to appreciate and embrace our family and friends, because they are truly the people who support us. And even some friends become just like family members. And it really does take a village of folks to help you throughout your journey in life. It said it takes a village to raise children. It takes a village, it takes the support of lots of folks throughout your journey. And I know that my journey would be entirely different if it weren't for the friends and family and the people that I've met throughout my life. It would be different. And I love where I am now. So that would be my thing, to appreciate your family and friends and know that they are the biggest assets that we have.
Yvette?
I mean, she said it all. That's it. I mean, long as you have your family and your friends in your corner, you can't go wrong.
I think that's it's interesting that the two of you are coming from two different places in terms of your journeys, but you come to the same conclusion. I think that in and of itself is an interesting dynamic. Another question. I see it. I saw one in the chat, but another question from somebody live.
Well, we got a comment where, someone wanted to applaud both women for their journey and for their story. So I think that's it.
And the other part of that question, though, for both of you all is, where do you go from here? This age group of women is certainly not close to being finished in terms of where your journeys will take you, I think. And so I think one of the questions that this particular person is interested in is, where do you go from here? What do you see your future as in the next 25, 30 years?
Tara and our other, excuse me, your other guest, I asked that question. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. This is Shalon, but I'm sure that you're thinking forward. So where do you guys go from here?
At the time, all I'm doing is going to enjoy, I spent 34 years in my career and I raised all my kids, grandkids. Right now, I'm enjoying my time off for another couple of years, maybe. But whereas to where I'm going to go after this, I don't know. I'm just going to take it one day at a time.
I agree with Yvette. I've enjoyed the time. 36 years at one company, volunteering for different organizations. I've enjoyed that all. However, I think it's a time when you step aside and you let the younger people move up, and you serve as a, per se, mentor or advisor to them. As far as my volunteer efforts, that's what I would like to do now. Let the millennials, let my daughters, let the young folks get their hands wet and start taking leadership positions, moving up within their professions. And I just want to be there if you need me. If you need some advice, if you need some mentoring, because right now I just want to, and the name of my story is Embracing Myself. I'm selfish right now. I just want to embrace myself, let the day come to me, enjoy my soulmate over here, enjoy my grandchildren, Jordan and Jacob, just enjoy being me and just enjoying life, however that looks and however it might be. Getting back, and especially since we've gone through the pandemic, I'd love to have the opportunity to get back together with my girlfriends and lunch and just have fun. Have fun.
Yes.
Am I unmuted?
No, you're unmuted.
I'm unmuted. Okay. I have a question of Yvette. I know that as African American women, and women in general, but African American women in particular, we tend to take on a lot, and a lot of other people's issues and problems and events. And my question to you is, how do you take care of you? When do you take care of you?
That's what I'm concentrating on now, is taking care of me.
Okay. And how do you do those things?
I shouldn't say this, but yes, I go to the casino and relax. Okay.
Nothing wrong with that.
I play video games on my phone because I like to do that, and that relaxes me. I spend a lot of time in Walmart buying stuff that I don't need. But I don't have a time limit. I don't have any place to be at a specific time. I go and do as I please. And yes, I may go to bed at 6 o'clock in the afternoon and wake up at midnight, stay up all night and watch Dragnet. Who knows? I mean, I watch a lot of black and white movies. But you know, and I may eat nachos at 2 o'clock in the morning because I can.
Okay.
And stuff I didn't get to do before, now I'm just doing it.
Okay. Okay.
Yvette, we're a lot alike. All those things that you said, I enjoy doing also.
But you
That's
know,
what
and
I
I think the central point here that I think Michelle raises is an important one, and that is taking care of ourselves as African American women, because we do, you know, part of the reason that this book was important is because I think, you know, Black women just do. We don't get pats on the back. We don't even look for them. We just do. We see a problem and we address it. But I think sometimes we get lost, right? We get lost in dealing with everybody else's stuff. We get lost. The question I guess I have is, do we wait until now to take care of ourselves, or is there something we can say to young people, you know, our younger counterparts? Maybe you should take care of yourself a little bit earlier, start a little bit earlier, so it doesn't take so long to get back. You don't have, you know, the resilience at 60 may be different than if you had started when you were 40 or 35.
That is true. I should have probably said, y'all need to figure it out on your own instead of waiting for me to take care of it.
But you know, you wouldn't have done that. But you know, I do honestly believe. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
doing it now. I'm as my daughter says, don't ask questions, you won't know about it. So I don't ask questions. I let them figure it out.
I have a question for Tara.
Okay.
You do so much with volunteering and that sort of thing. Is there a specific area that you feel that it's important that you know, we as Black women or whatever, that we focus any kind of, you know, extra attention on, maybe that we're not paying attention to, just based on your experience?
I think it's so important to help the children in our communities. I know that one program that I worked with through my Links organization, it's a dance group. And so many kids just can't afford to take dance. It's very expensive. And so what we do, we charge the little girls in our community who can't afford to take a dance class a very minimal fee. And if you can just see the joy and happiness when their parents come to the dance recital, it just melts your heart. So I think it's so many things that we can do as African American women to help the children in our community. And that's a lot. Whether it's teaching them being a reading partner, you know, partnering with agencies, you know, being a Brownie troop leader. I think because they are our future. And if we don't grab on them now and steer them in the direction now, then we're going to pay for it later.
And I understand about dance. I have a daughter who's a dancer. I know how much I spent. Thank you.
Let me just say this to you all. There was a third person who we had hoped would join us today, Angela Lambert. I'm following up on what Tara just said about children. And Angie could not be here today, but I want to read something from her story about our obligations and responsibilities to our children. This particular section is called Modeling and Mentorship in Standing Up for Our Children. Her words: young people need to have peers who do the right thing. They can ignore us and what we do by saying it's just an old-fashioned way of looking at it. So having contemporaries who model positive behavior is important. However, we also want to create some type of mentorship for young ladies and young men. It should be a mentorship program that is a part of their schooling as early as the kindergarten and first grade. We have to engage our children earlier rather than later. That will help direct their attention to making sure our babies are reading and learning. Finally, we need to stand up for our children. They are suspending these elementary school these elementary children at an alarming rate, especially our kids. If little Johnny does it, little Johnny just needs a timeout because little Johnny is going to be okay. Little Johnny is going to do great things. But if it's little Jermaine, the rules are different. The police may be called. It seems that the answer to any problem with man, woman, or child who is Black, call the police. We are great people. Leave us alone and let us do, and we will be an unstoppable empire. For Angela, it's not just about saying, but about doing. It's about action. The title of her chapter is "Love is an Action Word," but I think it's so important. I know, children are kind of reflected in all of the stories in some fashion. Tara had twin girls, and they were preemies. And I'll just, defer to you, Tara, in terms of some of the kind of briefly some of the real struggles you had with your daughters, who are now wonderful young women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it truly was. When you think you're having one child and you have two, and when they come into the world and the doctor is telling you that they probably won't make it through the week. So it was a bittersweet event for me, and the struggles that they went through. And because they were preemies, then sometimes you would go the extra mile to make sure that they were all right, when maybe you were just given a little bit too much, so you had to, set a happy medium to help them. But like Stephana said, it was a roller coaster. One, they said probably wouldn't make it at all. And that's when that family came in. So family support that helped me through that event. And now they're on the call, but now they're 35 and beautiful, smart, productive, caring young women who are raising children of their own. And I'm so proud of that. And like many of you all would say, that would be your most proudest accomplishment that you had. But it was very touch and go. And during those first 6 months, they stayed in the hospital 5 months before they even came home. So yeah, so that faith came in there also.
Connie, I see, is your hand up? Did you have a comment?
Unmute yourself, Connie, unmute yourself.
I just didn't know. I saw your hand up and I wasn't sure.
You're still muted, Connie, you're still muted. Left hand, bottom left-hand corner.
And maybe she didn't have anything. I like I said, I thought her hand was up, but I'm probably incorrect.
Any other questions that we have for our two celebrants? Okay, we have one more Black History Month question, and then we've been here about an hour. I really appreciate you all, but before I wind up, let Joy do her thing.
Who was the first Black woman in the world to earn a pilot's license and was a barnstorming aviator who performed daredevil tricks?
And if whoever won the last two can't win this one, Michelle.
Anybody have the answer? You can answer live too at this point, if you just know it, you want to shout it out.
Joy, did you say Black woman?
Yes. To earn a pilot's license and was a barnstorming aviator who performed
Is it Betsy Combs?
Who?
Is it Betsy Combs? Coleman.
How about that?
Betsy Coleman.
That's it.
So now who said that?
That was Yvette.
Okay, Yvette, you're going to be the winner of the final book. And I just want to reiterate one more time. Today's the last day. If you go to the website and purchase this book, Ordinary African American Women, you will receive for free this book, Color Him Father. It is a wonderful book about Black fathers. It has stories in there from a lot of men and women, and they talk about the fathers, the dad who raised them. And so you would receive that for free. So please go out to the website and take a look. And if you purchase today, you'll get one of those books.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you for participating. Thank you for allowing us to share these conversations from Tara and Yvette. Anybody who I didn't say hello to before, I say hello to now. The link for and the replay of this live event will be on our website and on YouTube. We have 3 more launches scheduled. The next launch is March 7th at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, featuring Michelle Gaither and Tina Price. The entire calendar is on our website and listed in chat, and you can go to Eventbrite. The books are available in all formats on the Jewel Jordan website, as well as the ebook is available at Amazon. Let's see. We are scheduled for an interview tomorrow, March 1st, on the Book of Sean, a part of a new streaming network, Fox Soul. Let's see. The other thing is, the other thing
tomorrow,
is
that's tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific. That'll be 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 o'clock Central. So you guys have got to check it out. They're interviewing Stephana. I'm so excited. So make sure you check it out.
The interview is thanks to Ginger. Ginger scheduled that.
Where would we find that interview? Where would we go to find that, Ginger?
If you go to foxsoul.com, it's on the internet. Foxsoul.com. Okay. And the name of the show is called The Book of Sean.
S-E-A-N.
S-E-A-N.
S-E-A-N. Okay.
I'll put a link in the chat.
Also, I didn't say this in the beginning, but there are 4 books. It's a quadrilogy. There are 4 books. This is the second book. There's a third book, Ordinary Extraordinary Women as the Millennials, and a 4th book, Ordinary Extraordinary African American Women as We Begin. The third book, we started it, but we're open to recommendations for young women between the ages of 25 and 44, whom you think would be good choices to be included in the third book. And so please send to our website, info@jeweljordanpublishing.com, anybody you would recommend, but you should include why you think the person should be included and contact information. Thank you to Joy, Brian, Ginger, all of you who are here, all of you who have shared this. Thank you most of all, however, to Tara and Yvette. I just appreciate all the ladies in the book, and I appreciate you guys being willing to share your stories, and also the audience being willing to be present so that we can share the stories. Stay safe, wear your mask. If you are so inclined, please get a shot. I got my second shot on Friday, and I'm all good. So stay well. Peace, blessings.